Hey, my name's Brian, recovered alcoholic. My sobriety date's February 2nd, 1997. And that still blows my mind that I've been sober as long as I have, and I'm just, it's the result of doing this work. That's the result of doing the work, you know? And so, um, let's just jump right in. Before I get started, let's do the set aside prayer. Um, and let's just take a moment of silence for each one of us to remember the still sick and suffering alcoholic. And we'll take that moment right now. All right, here's the set aside prayer. God, please help me set aside everything. That pretty much sums it right up, right? Please, God, help me set aside everything I think I know about myself, the big book, my disease, and other spiritual conceptions. So I may have an open mind. That's what it's all about having an open mind. Put aside what I think I know so I can have an open mind in a new experience with all of these things. Please help me see my truth. Amen. We're going to start right at the bottom of page 63, right where we left off. So it says next. It didn't say wait till you feel better, or what they're referring is next. Once we get off our knees from doing the third step prayer, boom, next. We immediately go right into this, There's a word. Yeah, look this up. So it says next we launched out on a course of vigorous action. Big. That means vigorous, means forceful, strenuous. I don't want you to forget that. Strenuous action, right? Strenuous. Strenuous action. The first step, which is a personal house cleaning, which many of us have never attempted. Though our decision in step 3 was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect. Permanent. What are we talking about? We're talking about permanent effect. I can't really turn my camera because I got a charger. Actually, it's 100%. Over here. Take this. Whoops, what's going on? Is that better? Is that better for everybody? So I got my book in front of me, so I'm just reading. But it says could have little permanent effect. Isn't that what we're here for? Is permanent sobriety? I don't know about you, but that's what I'm here. I want a permanent effect. And it says unless at once. We're talking about unless at once, followed by strenuous effort. And we're talking about strenuous, right? So first, right? Strenuous, vigorous. Now it's talking about strenuous effort to face. So it's going to take some, effort for us to effort to face the truth in ourselves, and then to get rid of it, to get rid of the things in ourselves which have been blocking us. We're all born with these good qualities within us. They're always there. But as I get older, I think my first resentment I might have got towards my brother because he wanted me to share a toy or something, and I said no. Or I wanted to share his toy and he said no, or something like that, So as time starts to build from when I'm a little all the way till I got tons of resentments and all this stuff piled in, and it's just blocking out the sunlight. And none of this good qualities of myself can come to the surface. But once we inventory all that mess, right? And we start going further on in the steps, then eventually those blocks will be removed and the sunlight of spirit can come in and then nourish all that assets that we had that could never come to the surface, and now those can, and we can grow into the person that we're meant to become. Okay, so I think I went a little bit too off on that a little bit, but it says our liquor was but a symptom. Interesting. I always thought it was the problem. Now it's telling me it's but a symptom. So my problem must go much deeper than if alcohol is just a symptom. It says, so we had to get down to causes and conditions. Causes and conditions So what I did is I wrote something after that. So we get down to the causes and conditions of my ego state of being. And so, therefore, we started upon a personal inventory. This was step 4. A business which takes no regular inventory goes broke. You know what it's telling us right here? It's telling us that we need to take a regular inventory. Now, if you know anyone that's been sober any length of time that's been through this process, they're going to tell you inventory, inventory, inventory. And guess what? Once you get past this and we get living in steps 10, 11, and 12, we're going to be doing inventory all the time. Okay, so a business which takes no regular inventory goes broke. So if I don't take a regular inventory, I'm going to feel broke inside, and I'm not going to be spiritually connected. Taking a commercial inventory is a fact finding. So you're going to find facts about yourself. And then it's fact facing process. It is an effort to discover the truth about you, discover your own truth about the stock in trade. One object is to disclose damaged or unsellable goods, to get rid of them promptly without regret. It's the second time in 2 paragraphs where it said, the first paragraph said to be rid of, and now it's to get rid of, to get rid of, to be rid of, and to get rid of. It's telling us twice to get rid of them promptly, without regret. Promptly means immediately. If the owner of a business is to be successful, he cannot fool himself about values. I'd like to look at character defects as being damaged, you know, and we'll look at those in a minute here. We did exactly the same thing with our lives. We took stock honestly. Honestly. Let's talk about that word honestly. How many times did the word honest showed up when we read how it works? Like 3 times in the first 2 paragraphs or first paragraph, whatever it was. First, we searched out the flaws in our makeup which caused their failure. So that's the first thing we're going to do, is we're going to search out the flaws in our makeup which caused our failure. Being convinced, going back to that 3rd step here, again, being convinced, all the way back to page 60, being convinced that self, manifested in various ways, was what had defeated us. We considered its common manifestations. You know what it's saying right here? Self defeated self. That's what it says. Defeated us. Self. Manifest in various ways, what defeated us. Defeated by self. As in, remember back in the 3rd step, we went over that. Now, I cannot overcome self with self, right? We considered its common manifestations. So the common manifestations of self, you know, is the things that we're going to inventory: resentment, fears, and our conduct. And there's probably another 1,000 more you could probably list manifestations of self. Ego is probably the biggest one. It says resentment is the #1 offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. From it stems all forms of spiritual disease. For we have been not only, now we're going back to the doctor's opinion, mentally and physically ill, mentally, mental obsession, and then physical allergy, we have been spiritually sick. Now, I had to look at that for a minute and ask myself, have I been spiritually sick? Am I spiritually sick? It's an interesting to really look at that and go, where am I at spiritually? And then it gives me a promise. And that first paragraph right there I just read, from resentment all the way down spiritual sick, is I wrote it as, I highlighted it red as a warning. We have a promise here. It says, when the spiritual malady, that inner condition, is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. You know what happens when the spiritual malady is overcome? The mental obsession gets removed, and I no longer have that physical craving for alcohol because I don't put it in my body no more. So I straighten out mentally and physically. It says, in dealing with resentments, we set them on paper. We listed people, institutions, or principles with whom we were angry. I'm going to stop. There's a period there. So we're going to go to column 1. And if you look at page 65, just again like this, I just did 3 columns. I wrote column 1, column 2, column 3. And then I want you to space it apart. When you look at page 65, I want you to write down, I want you to put the biggest resentment that you got right now in column 1. All right. And then I want you to skip 1, 2, 3, skip 4 lines. So on that 5th line, I want you to write the next one. So it's about the same gap between Mr. Brown and Mrs. Jones. Is everybody with me so far? I can't be like, I need to be able to see what other people are. There we go. Is everybody with me so far? Okay. So I want to see like a show of hands of how many people have done this page 65. Just a show of hands. I want to see what I'm working with here. Is that pretty much almost everybody? Is that about right? How many people have done this? All right. So I know there's a couple that have not, but I'm just getting a show of hands of everybody that's done this because what we're about to do. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. You can put your hands down. So I'm going to write. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. I'm writing down my ex-wife. Now I'm going to give her a name. Her name is Jennifer. All right. Now, I'm just going to share mine as I'm going along just to kind of help you, but this is really easy. So when we go to the cause, because the next line is going to say, we ask ourselves why we're angry, which is the cause. Why am I angry at person? Now, I want to go back to the example with Mr. Brown before we continue. I want you to look at Mr. Brown, and you see he's got 3 resentments. We're going to call this guy Bill, okay? Because Bill was the author. So Bill's got a resentment at Mr. Brown, and he's got 3 resentments, as you can see. 1, so I number these, so I want you to number them when you write them down. 1, his attention to my wife. Now I want you to think about it. If you got a wife, how are you going to feel somebody else giving his attention to your wife? It's going to piss you off. And if it's the other way, what if it's a girlfriend or a boyfriend or whatever relationship you have? If someone's paying attention to your significant other, right, that might bother you. You might get jealous, you might not. It just depends on the situation, right? But I just want you to kind of put yourself in his shoes. And then he said, but wait a minute, it gets worse. The second resentment told my wife of my mistress. Guess what? Now I want to kick Mr. Brown's ass. Seriously, I want to whip his ass, right? And then the third one is Brown might get my job at the office. So now I really want to kick his ass, right? He might get my woman. He told my woman of my mistress. He might get my wife, and he might get my job. So let's just say here for 1 second. Do you think Mr. Brown is really pissed off? I mean, Bill really pissed off at Mr. Brown. Yes? Nod your head. Yes? Because when you're writing that, I want you to feel it. So I'm going to go to mine. So you see how I numbered him 1, 2, and 3. Now when we go to Mrs. Jones, it's kind of all over the place, but there's 5 of them. So I'm just going to so when you write yours in column 2, I just want you to number them. So I'm going to count the 5 just so you'll understand. Okay, so we're on Mrs. Jones. We're in column 2. It says she's a nut. So that's the first one. She snubbed me, which is 2. She committed her husband for drinking. That's 3. 4, he's my friend. 5, she's a gossip. So you see what I mean? When you go into column 2 and you're writing about all the resentments that you have towards the person in column 1, just number them. But here's the kicker. Here's the kicker, though. Once you got 4 lines down, I want you to draw a line all the way across those 3 columns. And then within that block that you're looking at for column 2, you can't write any more than 14 words with all the resentments you might have towards that person in column 1. No more than 14 words in that square, in that block. Okay? So let's take a few minutes. Let's just take a few minutes. If we haven't started column 1, if people started column 1, it doesn't take long. You already know what's in your head. You already know. I asked everyone, bring a resentment with you, right? So you already know. Just write it on a piece of paper. If you've done this before, okay, you're not going to have, as many as you had hopefully the last time. And each time you do inventory, like I said, inventory. Each time I do inventory, a lot of times I might have 1 or 2 things, because I'm sober for a while and I'm living in steps 10, 11, and 12. Things still come up, and I'm human just like anybody else. And I can start reacting, because something happened to me when I'm not spiritually fit. And the next thing you know, I'm flying off at my mouth, and then I got to go back with my tail between my legs and make amends. So column 1, just put the names. Any resentments, people, institutions, principles, institutions. Maybe the institution of marriage. It could be institutions, Department of Corrections, jails, cops, whatever, principles. I'm not too clean on principles too much, but I've definitely had some institutions for sure. Okay, so I'm gonna just in my second column. So in my column number one, I have a woman named Alyssa. And she is someone I dated for 5 years. We broke up 2 years ago. And my cause in column two, boy, she cheated on me. All right. So you're already gonna meet. You're already gonna cheated. I just wrote cheated. She's a she cheated. She's a effing effing B word. Okay. I'm trying to clean it up from yesterday. Yesterday I just kind of let it all out and I was like, because I was showing you how angry I am. Because I want you to think about this for 1 second. All right. If somebody cheated on you, how are you gonna feel? Are you gonna be enraged and go, how dare you do that to me? So I gotta put that in column two. I put she cheated on me, she's an F and B. Um how how dare her? How dare you cheat on me? Do that. Do how dare you dare cheat on me, the the great the great boyfriend that I am. Like I don't do nothing wrong. I am perfect. And how dare you do that to me? Don't you know? You see, I really want you to think about. But here's the thing. You're going to feel the same thing that I'm going to feel. I just want you to put yourself in that shoes. How do you feel when everybody's experienced it, I would think, at one stage or another, that when someone betrays you like that, man, I just get, oh, right? You feel that? Does everybody feel that? All right. I want everyone to feel that. And as mostly people experience that too. Raise your hands. People had the same experience. All right. So you know what I'm feeling, right? So what I want to tell you is that there's a whole nother, oh yeah, she called the cops on me too. She's a big one. She's a big so I haven't seen her in 2 years, right? So I'm driving downtown, I'm going to get my medication, right? And that's the only time I left the house. I left the house for 5 minutes and I'm going down Main Street and she passes me in her car. Now I know her car. I got the only blue truck in town. She knows my truck. She's beeping the horn and she's waving at me with her shoulder all the way out, like she's trying to touch me, right? So I'm like, it's a message to tell me to go to her house. You got to remember, she's the ex-girlfriend, right? And I'm getting, you see, the ego's kicking in and it's going, ooh, she wants me. I need to go over to her house. Why would she be waving to me? So I go over to her house, like, I don't know, 3 days ago. I go over there to say hi. She immediately calls the cops on me and tells me to leave. So I get pissed. I'm walking home and I'm mad, like how dare you call the cops on me now after 2 years? Like you should be over this. We should be able to talk and be friends. You see the ego in there? You see the ego? I'm trying to tell somebody how they're supposed to feel, how they're supposed to act, and all of that. Okay. Now, how's everybody doing with column one and two? Everybody pretty got that good? Okay, so I got my ex-wife in column one. It's the exact same shit, right? She cheated on me. Now, this is even worse because I was in the military overseas. I was in Kuwait. She cheated on me when I was overseas. Do you know how much that just, oh my God, when we were talking on the phone and she told me, and I'm on the other side of the world, I just wanted to hurt somebody. I wanted to hurt somebody. I wanted to punch a camel. Like I wanted to smash the phone. Like I was like, how dare you? Like I'm your husband. This is a different level of cheating now because now we're married, right? It's different boyfriend, girlfriend. It's just a whole nother level because that's my wife, right? You know? And so um she did call the cops too. I don't even know how many times she got called the cops, got a restraining order. Oh man, it got bad, right? And I'm sober through all of this, walking through all this sober and going, you know, I want to share one experience before we go any further, and that's when I went to divorce court, I gave her everything she wanted. And all my friends thought I was absolutely insane. I said, how much money you want for the support of the kids? I gave her everything. She goes, I want $1,500 a month. Okay. I never saw my kids growing up because I was busting my ass paying her $1,500 so I don't go to jail. And then I had to make my own money so I could live. And guess what? She lived much better than I did. But that's how it is. That's the sacrifice we make as a dad, isn't it? Or as a parent. Our children live better than we do, right? So now I'm going to go into the third column. Before we go any further, I'm going to read bottom of page 64. We ask ourselves why we were angry, which was column 2. We should have already done that. And in most cases, we found it was our self-esteem. So what I want you to write, I want you to go over to page 65, and I usually just write it somewhere in the margin. I'm going to give you these words to write. There's going to be 6 of them. I'm going to give you all 6. I just want you to write it in the margin somewhere on that right side near that third column. Okay. So the first one's going to be self-esteem. And then it says our pocketbook. Pocketbook's going to be the second. Our ambitions is going to be third. Our personal relationship is fourth. And then it says including sex. So we're just going to call that sex relations. And we're going to call that number 5. It says we're hurt or threatened. So we were sore. We were sore. You know, when I have a little sore on my arm and you kind of pick on it, it hurts, right? Just follow me on that. So I'm sore. It says we were burned up. You ever get that feeling when you get really mad? You just feel the heat. I know for me, when I get really mad, they used to call me a hothead because I would just feel that heat. My face would turn red, and then I would absolutely have Tourette syndrome and freaking lose it and just go off on somebody. Now, you know what? That is the absolute ego at its fucking best right there. Because nobody can stop me when I'm being that possessed of that anger. When I am possessed of that anger, my ex-wife used to say, "What is wrong with you? Have you lost your mind?" And I would just, "Screw you. Leave me alone. Stop talking to me." Right? Because I completely lost my mind because I get possessed by that anger, okay? And then the ego just kicks in and controls me and tells me exactly what to do, what to say, all of that. You know, you ever think about when you're really angry and you start flying off and the words start flying out? Have you even stopped to think about what you were saying? Because I don't. When I get angry like that, there's no control. It just flies out. And that's what gets me in trouble. So I learned that in sobriety, that's my, what I do. So I learned that. So when I start to, remember, you ever hear people talk about triggers? Triggers. I hate when people talk about triggers. But guess what? You know what a trigger is? When somebody's trying to upset me, when someone's trying to push my buttons, that's like a trigger, right? Think about it. What triggers you to get angry? When I start to feel that heat, that's what we're talking about, the burning. When I start to feel that heat, I can't let it get up to here. I can't let my face get red. If my face get red, then I got to go make amends in sobriety. And guess what? That's really hard. That sucks. That's really hard to do, right? Because I don't have any excuses. I can't say, well, I was drunk, you know? So I use that as a trigger. When I start to feel that heat, that's my trigger to know I need to go and remove myself from that situation before it escalates, you know? So again, I want to use this example with Alyssa. I was at Alyssa's house. I saw the cops coming. I saw them pull in. I knew it was time for me to leave. Okay. I knew it was time for me to leave. You get this intuition. Wait a minute, right? I got to leave. I got to go before it gets escalated. And I had the funny thing is, I had a chat with the cops and we laughed it off, and that was the end of that. It wasn't even a big deal. It wasn't even a big deal at all. They just said, just leave her alone. I said, I did. I left her alone for 2 years. She was just waving at me. I thought it was an invitation. So anyway, what I want you to do, so was hurt, threatened, interfered. So we were burned up. Again, feeling that heat before you get, when you're getting mad. On our grudge list, we set opposite each name our injury. I always look at the cause as if they're hurting me. I'm injured. It says, was it our self-esteem? Our security. Now, security is going to be number 6. We already talked about self-esteem on the previous page. 6 of them. So I wrote mine kind of like in that margin, right by that third column, and I wrote self-esteem, pocketbook, ambitions, personal relationships. I put sex relations and security. 6. Okay? Now, all I want you to do, simple. Most of us have already done this. I've already asked before, who's done this before? You're just doing what you've already done before. This is the easy part, easy peasy. Okay, so I'm going to go into this third column now, and I'm going to look at Alyssa cheated on me and all this, and I'm going to go, oh yeah, she affected my self-esteem. So I want you to write down the words. Now you're going to find you're going to have probably out of those 6, at least 5 for each one. Occasionally, the pocketbook, again, is money. Did it affect you any way financially? Okay. And so I want you to just kind of look. And so with her cheating on me, it definitely affected my self-esteem. Now with the ex-wife, now with the girlfriend cheating on me, that didn't affect my pocketbook. But guess what? With the ex-wife, it's going to be all of them. Because you remember, when she cheats on me, the first thing I think about is divorce and then child support. Damn it, right? And divorce is going to cost money, right? All of that's going to cost money. And guess what? She didn't work. I did. She stayed home and took care of the kids. So who's affected financially, right? So I got self-esteem. I'm just gonna self-esteem, and then pocketbook for ex-wife. Ambitions. Yeah, my ambitions. Stay away from the cops, right? It's definitely affected my personal relationships. And then, of course, she cheated on me. That totally affected the sex relations because I didn't want to get any now, you know. Um, and then, of course, it affected my security, made me feel really insecure. So on the top, for that first girlfriend that cheated on me, the one, it didn't affect my pocketbook, but it affected all the other ones, the other five. And just writing down the words, easy peasy, right? Ambitions, personal. Now, I'm not abbreviating. I'm writing all the words out, just like it did on column 3, just like Bill did. You see the words self-esteem, sex relation, self-esteem, security, sex. You see, he wrote self-esteem 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, 5 times, you know? So I'm just writing all the words. I'm writing the words. I always say the key is always in the writing. The key is always in the writing. Okay, personal, sex, and security. So I'm going to show you what mine looks like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, this is what mine looks like. That's it. You see, column 1, I got Alyssa, Jennifer, cheated on me, and then what part of self is affected. Okay, that's it. Most of us have done this. It's pretty easy, right? Everybody with me so far? Nobody's confused, right? If you, for some reason, you get confused and you're not sure, just you'll have to just drop the thing in the chat, your question or something like that, and I'll see what I can do. Okay, I'm going to give you a few minutes to figure it out. You really don't have to think too much. You're just writing the words down. Once everybody's done, when everybody's done, if you could just like raise your little hand. Does everybody know how to raise your little hand? That way I know everybody's done because I don't want to move on. I don't want to lose. I want everyone to be on the same page. So it's like it's that little, I think it's the dots. It says, I think it's no, it's, you got to click on, is it participant? I think it's participant, and then click on your name and then it'll say raise hand. I just want to make sure everybody's done. So I'm just going through. If nobody's not done, I want to give everyone enough time. This is easy. I want to give everyone enough time to do this because we've all, like I said, how many people have done this before? People raise their hands and everything. So this is the easy part. It's easy. It's not going to take very long to do this. Okay. So, I was trying to find something earlier. I don't know what I did with it. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna give you guys a second to finish up what you're doing there. I'm gonna see if I can find something good. I have tons of pads like this all over the place, tons and tons of pads. And so make sure you have plenty of paper. Plenty of paper. I got another pad here. I have plenty of paper around. So I want to share something here. This is a 3-column inventory. There is no 4th column attached to it. If there was, it would show it on the page. It's not there. So if you're doing anything other than a 3-column inventory, you're not following the book. Okay? It's page 65. 3-column inventory right there. It says we went back through our lives. Nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. Okay. Now, I felt mine's pretty thorough. Didn't take a lot of thinking, right? And honesty. There's that word honest again. Second time, right? When we were finished, we considered it carefully. So I'm going to look over it and consider it carefully. But I'm like, well, that was just too easy. That was just too easy. I've done this before. What am I going to get out of this, right? So it says, the first thing apparent was that the world and its people were often quite wrong. Hell yeah, everybody was wrong, right? I'm pissed off at the whole world and everybody's wrong, right? To conclude that others was wrong was as far as most of us ever got. That's just as far as most of us ever got. It's right here. It's right here, right? Pointing the finger. So to conclude that others was wrong was far. So to conclude that others was wrong was as far as most of us ever got. The usual outcome, I want you to bear with me for a second because we're going to do two reviews still. We're going to do two reviews before we even go any further. Okay, so it says here, the usual outcome was that people, right above people, column 1, continued to wrong us in column 2, and we stayed sore in column 3. Now you can starting to see how people around us are starting to dominate us, right? Because now we're walking around being sore in column 3, pissed off at everybody that's in column 1, in column 2. You all following me so far, right? Sometimes it was remorse for maybe my actions. And then we were sore at ourselves. Boy, that was hard when I get mad at myself, right? But the more we fought and tried to have our own way, back in step 3, with that ego kicking in, trying to have my own way, I've seen people do that even in sobriety, right? The worse matters got. The worst matters got. As in war, the victor only seemed to win. Our moments of triumph were short-lived. Short-lived, right? It is plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to futility, uselessness, and unhappiness. To the precise extent that we permit these, do we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile? But with the alcoholic whose hope is the maintenance and growth of a spiritual experience, this business of resentment is infinitely grave. We found it to be fatal. Now we're talking about holding on to a resentment is deadly because we're letting people in column 2 control us. We're being controlled. Think about that for a second. I've been controlled by everybody in my life, right? And that was why I drank. I didn't like everybody was telling me all what to do all the time. You should stop drinking, all this, right? But anger has the power to kill. And think about when you're like, I mean, ex-wife, ex-girlfriend, I had the power to kill, man. I was angry, right? I did think about killing them. I'm telling you the truth. I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't going to do that because it's the mother of my children. I just would never do that. But I thought about it. I was like picturing that shit in my mind. How am I going to do it and get away with it, right? And then I started thinking about it. And I'm like, that's stupid. Okay. But it has the power to kill. Anger. That's why we can't afford to be angry. For when harboring such feelings, hanging on to those anger, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the spirit. This can happen even in sobriety. Okay? We're not talking about just drunk. We're talking about sober with years of sobriety. You get a resentment, you shut yourself off from the sunlight of the spirit, and the insanity of alcohol returns. It doesn't mean I'm going to drink yet, but the insanity of alcohol will return. Those insane ego thoughts that we talked about and more about alcoholism. And we drink again, and with us to drink is to die. So first I'm going to get the insanity of alcohol returns, and we drink again. So first I'm going to get the insanity. That's kind of like that trigger. Once I'm aware of what the hell is going on in my head, and I start to think, man, that's crazy. Why am I thinking like that? If we were to live, we have to be free. We had to be free of anger, the grouch, and the brainstorm for not for us. You know what a grouch is? A grouch is someone that just complains all the time. They're not for us. They may be the dubious luxury of normal people. that aren't alcoholic, non-alcoholics, right? But for alcoholics, these things are poison. You ever hear that saying where you take resentment is like taking the poison and expecting the other person to die? Who suffers? Who suffers? Right, me. I'm going to tell you one example here. I ran a Zoom meeting for a couple years on when the pandemic broke out. We had a really great group and everything, and it was amazing, a great experience, But somebody had a resentment towards me, and I never knew about it. I never knew about it, and they had a resentment at me for like a year, and then finally told me, and I was like, dude, it's a misunderstanding. If you had talked to me from the beginning, that would have saved you all that time, And it reminded me when I get a resentment, I'm suffering, not them. I'm suffering. Okay. Now, most of us have done this, and I'm going to tell you, I got lots of inventory sheets where it's got the fourth column right there. I got rid of all that shit. I did. Once my sponsor took me through this way, I got rid of all that, scrapped all that out. Because if you go into that fourth column without missing what we're about to do here, you're going to lose the whole point. Okay, it says, we turn back to the list. And what are they referring to? They're not talking about column 1 or column 2. They're talking about column 3. We turn back to the list, for it held a key to the future. It holds a key to my future. Well, if you put a column 4 there, you're not even going to find the key. You're going to miss the whole key. Okay, it says right here, return back to the list. We're going to go back to that third column, for it holds the key to the future. We are prepared. We're prepared to look at it from, I underline this, an entirely different angle. Entirely different angle. What the hell are they talking about? Now I got to go back, look at this third column, and go, what are they talking about? I got to look at this from an entirely different angle. You know what we've been talking about every meeting every time we did a workshop, I've been talking about since the beginning, since Bill's story, I've been talking about the ego. And I hope all of you I've identified with the ego as I was reading through those pages, I was showing you where the ego pops up. I think it was more about alcoholism, we agnostics, even in chapter 3, even in I think it was step 3. I showed you all where all that ego is. So now what we need to look at it in an entirely different angle. So what I want you to do here, we're going to go like this. We're going to go just like that. That's my 3. All right, take that out. Right? And this is what I want you to do. I want you to take the first person on that list, and I'm going to put Alyssa, and I want you to write it top right-hand corner, right up here. I want you to put whatever that resentment is. I hope you got the biggest one as the first one. Put it right there. And then I want you to write your column 2 right here. You see, I don't want you to write anything on any of these lines. I want you to fit it all in the margin here. You got all this, whatever. Yeah, I guess that's a margin, that top margin. I want you to put the name, and I want you to put all the resentments you got, and you got that whole space to fill it in there. And all you're doing is copying it from page 65 that you just did. Just copying it and put it on one sheet, put it at the top of the page. I'm going to give you a second to do that. All right. So basically, you're just putting column 1 and 2 up on the very top of the border, right up here. Right up here, if you can see that. See how there's the margin? First name, I'm going to write in the second column, right here. Don't write anything on any of these lines yet. Everybody got that? If you don't have a margin, just do the best couple lines if you don't have one. All right. We need to break this down. That's what we're going to do. We're going to break this all the way down and have a new experience. Okay. If you don't hear me talking, that means I'm just writing. Okay. So on that first line, I want you to write self-esteem. I want you to think about, I want you to follow me. So what I want you to think about here is we're going to approach this from a completely different direction. So what we're going to do is we're going to approach this from ego, that ego state that we've been talking about all along. Okay. And at first, it's not going to feel right. I'm just telling you, at first, it just takes you, it took me a couple to get through a few of these for me to really get this. Okay. So I'm going to give you all the information first, and then you're going to tell you to write. Okay. So we're going to start off with self-esteem. Self-esteem is how I see or feel about myself. How I see or feel about myself. Now, you got enough room, you could write that after self-esteem if you'd like to. It's how I feel, how I see or feel about myself. It's the role that I assign myself. I want you to think about all the roles now that we've been playing. Back in step 3, we went over a whole bunch of roles, right? And then we also have our own roles, our own roles that we, you know, assign ourselves. So the sentence is going to start with, I am. Now, I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to go back to page 65, and I'm going to go look at Mr. Brown. All right. So in this situation, right, Mr. Brown, his attention to my wife, told my wife I'm my mistress, Brown might get my job at the office. So it's going to start out with, I am. So what I would write in here, I'm just coming at from Bill's point of view, looking at Mr. Brown, just so you kind of understand that. So it'd be, I am. And so his attention to my wife, I am the best husband. Because it's attention to my wife. I am the best husband. Told my wife of my mistress. Oh, and he might get my job at the work, but I am the best worker. Okay, so there's 2. There was 2 I got out of that. I didn't really get anything for the second one. Told my wife of my mistress. You know what? There's something in there. Told my wife. What would it be? You should keep your mouth shut. That's what it would be. Told my wife of my mistress, and then I am the best. I am the best. I am the best husband. I am the best worker. What would it be? There's something. See what I get from here. Told my wife of my mistress. Fear. Okay, so what I got for self-esteem from Mr. Brown, I am the best husband. I am the best worker. I am great at keeping secrets. Because what I guess secrets. Okay, so now, and then you're going to go down to, okay, so just kind of have an idea how that's going to go. We're looking at from the ego state. Okay, now the other thing that I'm going to talk about before we go any further is I want you to go back to page 65 for a second before we go any further with this. And I want you to look at something here. Does everybody see fear bracket? Everybody see the fears in that 3rd column? So for every single one of that we wrote down, self-esteem, pocketbook, ambitions, all that, every single one of them is going to have a fear attached to it. So I'm going to go over those 3 I just did. Okay. And so the 3 I just did, remember it was Mr. Brown, and it said self-esteem, and I'm coming from an ego. So I am the best husband. I am the best worker, and I am great at keeping secrets. My fear is that I'm not a good husband. That's the fear, not good husband. And then I'm not a good worker. Or no, fear would be the best worker, and then the fear is losing my job. Now you see what I just did there. I sort of modified it as I went along. You're going to find yourself doing that a lot. You put an idea down, and then you might cross it out, and you're kind of just molding it as you're going. It just takes, it's not something that's just going to flow like we just did with the first 3 columns. Then we knocked that out in like 5 minutes. This is not something, this is going to take some time for you to really to absorb it and really see where you're coming at. So sometimes, losing my job, best husband. I guess I could put I'm the best husband, and I could put my fear as divorce. Um, Divorce, losing my job, and then the fear about keeping that secret about cheating on the wife. The fear is going to be found out, being found out. You know, right? That sound right? To everybody being found. I think that's so. I want you to do that with So we're going to stop at self-esteem. I'm going to go to the next one here. All right. So once you get self-esteem done, the next one is going to be, so if you notice on page 65, there was one all the way on the bottom. Did you guys see that? All the way at the bottom, there was pride in parentheses. We're going to add that in now. So now that we added in fear on each, so the fear, you're going to write the fear. Fear is always going to go on the right side. Just like you said, when you look at page 65 there, that fear was all bracketed. They were all on that right side. So now when you do it and you're writing out self-esteem, the fear, you're just going to put the fears bracketed all the way on the right side and just bracket your fears. Okay. So the next one after self-esteem, I usually skip about 4 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're going to write pride. Now, pride is how I think others see me or feel about me. How I think. See, that's the cue. How I think others see or feel about me. It's the role that I assign others. Now, with the pride, it's going to start with others should or no one should, because it's about others. It's not, it's the role that I assign others. So let me go here for pride. I wish I had my examples with me. Others should. It would be like, just trying to, I have to keep page 65 in front of me, so I got the whole resentment with Bill, so I know what I'm talking about. So I kind of got this. Okay. So pride again is it's the role I assign others. So it's going to be like, like others should stay away from my wife, right? So that's what it'd be. Others should stay away from my wife. Um, and it would be others should mind their business at work, right? And I want you to skip 5 lines. I mean, just count 5 lines after pride and just go down 5 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're going to write the next one. Is everybody ready for the next one? It's going to be ambitions. So ambitions is going to be what I want to happen here. The sentence is going to start with, I want. What do you want? What do you want? Again, I just keep looking back at Mr. Brown so you understand that, with page 65, and so you were thinking, Bill, what does Bill want here? What does Bill want out of that? I would think that Bill would want Mr. Brown to leave his wife alone. I want Mr. Brown. I want Mr. Brown killed. Did you guys see that? Joel heard me. I see Joel laughing. I want Mr. Brown dead. I was just trying to, what's my ambition? I want to kill. I mean, think about it. When you're angry at somebody, what's your ambition? I want you to feel what I'm feeling, and I'm going to do everything I can to make you feel worse than what you made me feel, right? Retribution. Can you guys see the ego in all that? Can you guys give me it's important that you see this, because if you miss this, you're not going to be aware in your sobriety when the ego's running rapid in your life. It's cunning, baffling, powerful. It's going to just selfish self-centeredness, right? It's behind all of that is the ego. So I'm going to put my ambitions is to want Mr. Brown to disappear. That's the simplest one because I keep looking at what he did, attention to the wife, mistress, told my wife and the mistress, you might get my job. I just want him gone. That would be your ambitions. Think about it. That would be his ambitions. I just want Mr. Brown to disappear and just, because he's causing too much drama in my life, right? So after ambitions, let's count down 4 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're going to write security. So security is, it's what I need here to be okay. Think about security. What do you need to feel secure? It's going to start out with, so this is going to be tricky. It's going to start with, I need blank, blank, blank. And then the last words is to be okay. So what do you think to be okay? So I'm going to open this up for any group participation. Okay. What do you think Bill needs here to be okay with this resentment towards Brown? Anybody want to try to jump in and answer that? What do you think Bill needs to be okay? Anybody? Joe, you trying to unmute? Give me a second. There we go.
Validation.
What was that?
Validation, do you think?
Validation? What do you need to be okay? Well, maybe. I think it's a little bit more than that though, because what does he need to be okay? We already, my ambitions was to want him to disappear, so I can't use that again, right? So you can't like repeat what you're doing because you can't do any like repeats, and the fears can't be the same. So just so you know that when you're going through it, because
I need to have her all to myself.
Need to have what?
I need to have my wife all to myself to feel okay.
Oh, okay. That's good. That's good. I'm gonna write that down. I need my wife all to myself. That's good because that eliminates like 2 of them, right? And then the other one's about the job. So what do you think he needs to be okay about his job? Mr. Brown might get my job. Work harder. I need
Mr. Brown to
maybe to work harder to be okay. He's talking about his job.
I need to prove Mr. Brown's bad at his job.
Dude, that's awesome. I got it. That's perfect. I need to prove Mr. Brown is a shitty coworker, right?
Yeah.
Well, I use these words sometimes. Yesterday when I was doing this, there was no women in here, so I was just unleashing with the swear words and just letting that anger just come. Just it's not that I was angry or nothing, but it just I want everyone to feel that anger when someone cheats on you. My God, I just instantly, I'll never forget the day when when I finally got it out of her and she told me, and I was just devastated. I was at work, I was devastated. I had a hard time driving. I was crying. I was just a wreck. It just destroyed me. And then how do you come back for something like that? Okay, so after security, 1, 2, 3, 4, we'll count down 4 lines and we're going to write personal. Personal relationship. So when it comes to sex or personal, any type of relationship that we're talking about, it's going to be some kind of deep-seated belief of how this relationship is supposed to look like. How is she supposed to behave? How is he supposed to behave? I don't know about you, but I used to try to get relationships with people that I could fix. I'm trying to tell them how to behave, right? That's what I'm trying to do. Control them and all of that, right? So, it's my deep-seated belief of how this relationship is supposed to look like. That's with personal and sex is the same way. It's going to start out with wives trust their husbands, or mothers respect their sons, or real friends. It'll be like wives, this depends on what that resentment is towards that person. So I'm going to go back so with the one that we're doing, that resentment's towards Mr. Brown. I'm just keeping it on that page 65 on that example, right? And then it says, Let's see here. Wives trust their husbands, mothers be real friends. I'm just going to put wives stay faithful, right? Because that no, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. It's not. Yeah, it's the other way around, right? So, and this is what I would do with myself. If I'm trying to do myself, I have to sit here and kind of really think about it. Okay. But guess what? I really like things that really make me think about what I'm writing about because I'm writing about me. And when I first look at it, I don't have a clue. But the more I think about it and then things start to come, it just takes a little bit of time. It just does. Okay. So I'm looking at this. Sometimes it just takes a while for me to figure this out. Personal relationships, it's got to be with the personal relationship with Mr. Brown would be real friends. So I don't know if Mr. Brown was his friend at one time or not. I don't know. So if he was, then I would say real friends. Well, let's just pretend like Mr. Brown was his friend, and then we're just going to put in here real friends. Don't mess with uh don't mess with other people's wives. Real friends don't mess with wives. I'm just trying to keep it simple, right? So count down 4 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sex relations. I just put sex REL, and it says again, it's a deep-seated belief of how a real man or a real woman. Now it's a little different, but it's how a real man and a real woman is supposed to be. It's supposed to be. How does a real woman and a real man, And it's going to start off with a real man or a real woman. So this one's really tricky because I want you to think about, again, the resentment with Mr. Brown, his attention to my wife, told my wife of my mistress, and sex relations is definitely affected here because he's told the wife of the mistress. So the wife probably doesn't want nothing to do with them, right? We're going to put in here for sex relations, again, it's coming from the ego. Real women, looking at the ego, would forgive their husbands because, husbands for cheating. Does that sound right? You guys good? Everybody? I'm just going over the example of Mr. Brown. I'm hoping that you're following along, but also doing your own work as well, too, at the same time. Okay, so we count down 1, 2, 3, 4. The last one is going to be pocketbook. Mine's at the bottom of the page. I got like 2 lines, but pocketbook is just basically finances. So I just wrote finances off of pocketbook. And if your finances affected, then you're going to write down how your finances affected. Now, when I did this with my ex-wife, right? Like when I did it with the girlfriend that cheated, and I went all the way down, I got the pocketbook. I didn't put nothing for the girlfriend, but with the ex-wife, I totally put pocketbook. Again, I mentioned that earlier. We're talking $1,500 a month. We're talking buying, we're just talking all kind. Yeah, I'm driving a car that's 25 years old, and she's driving a brand new car. That's all life is sometimes. But so if it affected your finances, that this resentment. We're only looking at the person, and again, we were working on Mr. Brown. So again, we go Mr. Brown, attention to my wife, and we're just working across, and I'm working this down from the ego standpoint of Bill against Mr. Brown. So I would say at this point, with this resentment that he has towards Mr. Brown, it hasn't affected his finances yet, but it really could because he's on the urge of losing his job. And he's on the urge where he could get divorced. So there's all this, what if or could. But at the moment, I don't think his finances are affected. But I think in the future, definitely. All right. Let me ask, does anybody have any questions now on what we're doing and how we're doing this? Any questions? Everybody?
Could I ask one, please, Brian?
You can.
Yeah, I know it sounds daft, but getting all this down on paper, what is the exact purpose? Is it to see how selfish and deluded we become and just to stock take and ask God to remove these things? Is that the deal?
Well, first off, the deal is just to see Well, there's a lot in there, and I don't want to put all that out just yet. I want to wait a little
Okay.
bit longer. I want to be done with column 3 before I, give you all the stuff that goes behind it. I don't want to give all that just yet. If you understand, I want to wait just a little bit before I tell you why, the purpose of it. Okay, but the purpose of it is to find our fears. There's no other way you're going to find your fears bracketed in that third column without doing this. So each one that you wrote down has a fear attached to it. So again, I'm going to go back to that Mr. Brown and all the stuff that I wrote about Mr. Brown. Okay. We already did the fears in that with the self-esteem. Now with the pride, right? I put others should stay away from my wife. And you got his fear. What's the fear? There's going to be other people, the fear is people talking to a wife, right? People, that's what it is. Paying attention to my wife. That's, and what's the fear? That's not going to stop, right? And then it won't stop. And then others should mind their business at work. And what's the fear? Losing my job. Did I have that? Yeah, no, losing my job. Okay. And then ambitions. I want Mr. Brown to disappear. Remember that one? So what would be the fear is that what would be the fear? The opposite of him disappearing would be him creating more drama, maybe, in my life. The fear. Oh no, wait a minute. Oh, there's a lot of fear in there, but I'm gonna put fear, Mr. Brown. Disappear. That he won't disappear. That's what it is. I just put drama. Security, what I need to be okay. I need all. Okay. I need my wife all to myself to be okay. And the fear is that she's going to leave. I need to prove Mr. Brown is a shitty worker. You're right. And what's the fear? That he's going to get my job. Personal relationships. Real friends don't mess with the wives. Again, what's the fear? Well, first off, one of the fears in here, if you got a friend that's messing with the wife, not only did you lose a friend, but you might lose the wife too. So you also lost a friend, right? If Mr. Brown was Bill's friend, then that's how I'm approaching it, that Mr. Brown was his friend, and probably coworker too, and basically the fear is just his attention to the wife. Attention to my wife. That's the fear. No, sex relations. The fear is that I put down real women forgive their husbands for cheating. And then what's the fear? She doesn't forgive me. Doesn't forgive. And then I didn't have pocketbook for anything like that. There was no pocketbook on that. I don't think so. Not yet anyway. So did everybody understand? Well, all I did is I just did the example with Mr. Brown. I went to the second column, went to the third column, and all I'm doing is a third column breakdown with Mr. Brown. We're just going to say it was Bill because Bill was the author. So the resentment, Bill has a resentment towards Mr. Brown. And that's how I approach this third column from the ego standpoint, from the ego state of being. Okay. So the other thing I want to say is remember all those characters we had talked about. Okay. All those characters are going to be right here in that third column. So I want you to think about this for a second. So they may not be the same. So my character roles change as I change, as I associate with other people. I want you to think about this for a second. When you're little, I should say it this way. Let me do this. When I was little, all right, because I can't talk about anybody else. When I was little, I learned pretty quickly that if I asked mom for something, Mom just always says no. But I learned that if I went to dad, dad is always like, dad's badass. He's a guy, you know, and I'm a boy and we're always doing cool shit, right? So I know if I, dad, mind if I go shooting, borrow your gun? And I'm like 9 or 10, dad's going to go, sure, go ahead. And mom's going to say, don't you even dare go near that gun. Okay. So I learned that pretty quickly. I can get away with stuff. Who I asked, you see, now I want you to see, I play a different role with mom than I do with dad. I feel like my role with mom, I had to manipulate her more, you know, to manipulate her versus my dad wouldn't co-sign on my bullshit at all. You see what I'm saying? Different roles. I play a different role with mom and dad, and then I play a completely different role with my brother. It just, you know, mom and dad is up here, brother's kind of equal, you know, I just play all these different roles. So I want you to think about what are the roles that you played with the person in column 1. So I'm going to give you and show you some of mine. Again, I got Lissa, okay? And I got, she cheated on me. She's a effing whatever. How dare you cheat on me? And she called the cops. Okay. So what are my roles? Well, first off, my first role is going to be the boyfriend. That's my first role, is that I'm her boyfriend. But then as being the boyfriend, I kind of have this Mr., you know, like I am the best lover ever, you know, kind of come up, you see? So I'm like, I call it Mr. Lover. Because Mr. Lovers, it gets affected the moment we start arguing. Because I know that sex is like getting off the chopping block, right? And then, you know what I mean? So, okay, so one role is boyfriend, another role is Mr. Lover, okay? That's all I can come up with right at the moment right now is 2 roles, but I know there's more in there. That's all I can come up with right now. So I want you to write your roles. So I kind of put my roles, you know, up here in the margin if you have room, but that's what it says in column 1, you know, in self-esteem. It says you know, the role I assign myself. And then and those are the roles I'm signing myself. Mr. Lover. That's that's every relationship I've been in, I've been like Mr. Lover. Like I want to be the best. You know what I mean? It's not, that's ego. That's that ego, like, and I see that, you know, but that's what we're looking at. So I'm looking at boyfriend. So again, boyfriend. Okay. My role as a boyfriend, again, how dare you cheat on me? Right? I'm that boyfriend, you know. Don't you know? Like I'm the best boyfriend, right? And so we're looking at roles: boyfriend role, Mr. Lover. I'm trying to think if there's any other roles. Sometimes you might get, you know, one role, 2 roles, 3 roles. It just depends. You know, everybody's situation, everybody's resentment is different. So like in this resentment that I had with Lissa, there was nobody else involved. The other thing I want you to think about too is, you know, I used to think resentment's got to be really big, and they don't. You know, I talked about when I did a 4-step workshop, I think it was 2 years ago, and I talked about different levels of resentment, how it sort of builds. Like you get this resentments up here, and then maybe bitterness might be above resentment. You know, we're going to talk about bitterness when we get into the sex inventory, but it starts off with like irritability. Irritability is like the first sign, that trigger, that if I don't take care of that when I'm starting to get irritable, it'll grow into a resentment. It'll grow into agitation. You see how it's sort of got these stages before you even get to that resentment where I'm like, now I'm really mad. You just see it building up. See that in yourself when it starts to build up, and stop that. You're the only one that can control yourself. I can't control you. I can't control nobody but my own self. We're talking about your actions. We're not talking about drinking here. We're taking this to a different level. We're talking about emotional sobriety. Okay? We're talking about being so aware of yourself that that ego ain't got a chance. You know, being aware of what you're thinking. If you're aware of what you're thinking, then hopefully you're going to be aware of what you're acting and reacting to. All action is born in thought, you know? So I got to be aware of these thoughts. Again, we went over that more about alcoholism and those stories. Remember those stories? Remember the insanity? Remember the ego coming in and going, why don't we just put whiskey in milk? That's the ego. You see? That's why it's so important to stay on top of that. and teach you what this is and show you the ego now, and for you to start to wrap your heads around that. So when we get further on, you're going to know what to look for. Those triggers. Remember I said triggers, right? You're going to be aware of whatever those triggers are. Okay. You guys all follow me with this so far? Have I lost anybody? I just want to make sure. The thing is, I don't want to lose anybody, so I'll take time doing this because it's so important that you grasp this whole ego. Because for me, it took me a while to grasp it, but what I got was those fears that I got bracketed. Oh my God, they were freaking pulling at my heartstrings, dude. And that showed me that it's the only way to get those fears that are bracketed here was to go. Not only that, but those fears that I got in this third column from doing this were touching my heart way more than that resentment did. Way more than the resentment did. That's my experience. So sometimes I can find the fear and then I can go back and just write the opposite that it would fit in there. It's always going to be, the fear is always the opposite of what you wrote because it's coming from the ego state. Now, the only way you're ever going to feel hurt or threatened is from you being in that ego state. If you're not in the ego state and you're in the spiritually fit state of being, you're not going to feel hurt or threatened. You're just not. Have you ever met people that are just, they are always smiling and they are always upbeat. They are always like in a good mood and they're going through a divorce and they're like going through the storm. They're going right through the middle of the storm, but yet they got serenity. We're going to talk about that when we get into fear, okay? But that's what I wanted to be like. I've seen these people that are just smiling and going through life and they're just getting dealt with shit and they're smiling and they're just going through it and they're serene. And I go, how can you be so calm? I'd be freaking out, right? It's because they live in that spiritual world now. It says, remember, I think it was in their solution. We got to find a spiritual basis of life or else. My way of life up to this point, when I did this and I realized how much my ego has been controlling me and it's been sitting in the back and oh my God, it just completely was an experience to me. It was a spiritual experience for me to go, oh shit, you know what? This is all about self-will and I can't do nothing about it because self cannot defeat self. You know, I felt kind of screwed here. All right, because I see how big my ego is controlling me, my thinking, and then my actions. You all with me on this, right? You all feel the same way because I need you to feel this way. Okay, now we don't have enough time clearly to finish this, but some of you can finish it now. Whatever you don't finish, you know, you can go home and take it home, try to have it all done by next week. Now, if anybody's got any questions, now we're going to continue on, but if anybody has any questions, you know, once the meetings ends, you can, everybody in this, if everybody in here should have me on WhatsApp or anybody's got any questions. If you don't have my information, make sure, put it in the chat. I'll make sure I'll give it to you. If anybody's got any questions after we leave the workshop, feel free, man. You know, I'm on Facebook, you know, I'll answer you pretty quick. And anybody that's talked with me, they will tell you I get back to you like really fast, you know? Okay, so what I want to do here is I want you to remember. So I wrote on the top of page 65 that the only way, the ego state, or it's also called a false state of being, you have to be in that ego state or that false state of being to ever experience being hurt or threatened. I wrote that above page 65. So I want you to understand that the only way that I'm going to feel hurt or threatened is to be in that ego state. If I'm not in that ego state and I'm living by a spiritual basis, you know, spiritual, and my inner condition is spiritually fit, I'm not going to feel that. I want to share one more experience. And both of my daughters have been born in my sobriety. Okay. My daughter got pregnant at 15. She was not living in my house. She was afraid to tell me. Of course, I found out by looking on Facebook and I'm like, I saw her sonogram picture and I'm like, what the heck, right? So I call her up and I'm talking to her on the phone and she said, Dad, I was afraid to tell you because I was afraid of your reaction. And I said, what kind of reaction did you get? And she goes, Dad, you've changed. I didn't get the reaction that I thought I was going to get. And that was a beautiful thing coming from my 15-year-old daughter. telling me that. You know what I mean? She was afraid to tell me because she was afraid I was going to yell at her or give her a lecture. And I didn't do neither. I just gave her a hug and told her I loved her and everything's going to be okay. She didn't expect that at all because I'm changing. When I see this stuff and I realize, you know what? I don't want to be this guy no more. What am I looking at? I'm looking at a pile of, I just feel like I just threw up on the table. That's what I feel like. I don't know if you feel the same way, but I'm looking at all this stuff and going, I don't like what I see. We call this the theater of a lie. My first sponsor, Mark Houston, taught me how to do this, and this just really breaks this third column. You know, it exposes the ego that's been in the shadows, you know. Okay, so let's continue on for a second here. I'm going to go back to the book. It says here, again, we were prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle. That's referring to the third column, and we did that. And it says, we began to see that the world and its people really dominated us. You know, can you see that? Can you see that the world and its people really dominated you? Because at this point, I feel completely dominated by everybody in my life. Think about that. In this state, you see that right there? In this state, what state are they talking about? They're talking about the ego state. In this ego state, the wrongdoings of others in column 2, fancied or real, had the power to kill. I'm going to bring you all the way back. How do you feel when someone cheats on you? I want to kill the bitch, right? Or the bastard or whatever, right? You think about that. Anger has the power to kill. That's pretty powerful. And I like to think that behind that anger, what's behind the anger is the ego. It says, how can we escape? Man, I need an escape plan. That's what I need. We all need an escape plan at this point, right? It says, we saw that these resentments must be, there's that word must, be mastered. But how? We could not wish them away any more than alcohol. I can't wish my ego away any more than alcohol. Now, can you all see? Remember back on, it talked about being spiritually sick on page 64. Can you all see how spiritually sick you were in column 3 by being in an ego state, the false state of being? Can everybody see how spiritually sick you have been living in that third column? It's important that you see how spiritually sick you have been in that third column because of the ego state. That false state of, if it's a false sense of self, okay, I want you to bear with me for a second. If it's a false sense of self, and I'm living in that third column, in that delusional state of the ego state, then that whole second column is based on a lie. That's why it's called a theater of a lie, because I can only be in that ego state to feel hurt, threatened from whatever someone does in column 2 to me. I hope that made sense. Okay? Because when I'm in that delusional state, in that column 3, that false sense of self, think about it. You're in a false sense of self, and someone does to you, and it's got the power. You got the power. It gives you the power to want to go kill somebody. Doesn't it sound kind of insane? Spiritually sick. I'm spiritually sick in that third column from being spiritually asleep. But now I'm spiritually awake, so that's going to change now. So you see, at this point, my ego is like, after me inventorying my ego, it's huge. Okay? So what do I got to do to kill the ego? Remember in Bill's story, I got to turn all things to the Father of light, right? So we're still sitting here with this ego. So the bottom of page 66, it's going to give us another review of the first 3 columns. You see, we're not even at column 4 yet. And think about how much information I've given you already. Okay. It says, this was our course. We realized the people in column 1 who wronged us in column 2. You see, I'm writing it right in there. Okay. We realize the people I wrote column 1 underneath people who wronged us. I wrote column 2. I'm at the bottom of 66. It's just a review. So we realize the people in column 1 who wronged us in column 2 were perhaps spiritually sick. And I just wrote from being spiritually asleep. Were perhaps spiritually sick from being spiritually asleep. Okay. Though we did not like their symptoms and the way these disturbed us in column 3, because I felt pretty disturbed in column 3, they, like ourselves, were sick too. And I wrote above sick, I wrote spiritually sick. Okay, so now that puts us on the same playing ground as the person in column 1, doesn't it? I'm spiritually sick, and now we're talking about people that offended us in column 2 are being spiritually sick. I want you to think about that. Now, the only way to overcome the ego now is with this prayer. Okay? We're thinking about, we're doing resentments. Let's go read this prayer. It says, we ask. So I have the whole thing highlighted in yellow. It's a prayer. The whole thing is a prayer. We ask God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience. Now, these are things you already have inside you. You already have patience. You already have pity. You already have tolerance. It says that we would cheerfully grant a sick friend, which means it's already inside us. Okay, we already have these good qualities. As I went over earlier, I think some of the good qualities I pointed out that was on page 61. These are qualities I already have, but the blocks are stopping us from those coming to the surface, and we can grow into the person that we're meant to become. Well, we got to get rid of all this ego and all this stuff first. It says, when a person did something to me in column 2, we said to ourselves, this is a sick man. Remember, spiritually sick. This is a spiritually sick man. How can I be helpful to him? If you're not sure how to be helpful to him, I always say take it into meditation. Because again, we're in prayer. Right in the middle of this prayer, he's asking a question, right? And then it says, God save me from being angry. So if you see the question in there, how can I be helpful? That's going to assume that you're asking that question in meditation because it's right in the middle of the prayer. So I like to take that question into meditation. Now, for those of you that have been sober for a while and want a deeper experience, I'm always going to throw stuff at you to have a deeper experience because that's what I'm always looking for. So what we did a third column. Remember how we wrote the characters, right? And we just went through the third column and did that and broke it all down. We had the characters written. If you want a deeper experience, you're going to do a third column for each one of those characters that you listed at the top of the page. You're going to do a third column for each character. That's why I said, bring a whole pad. You're going to do a lot of writing. You're going to do a third column for every resentment that you got. Now, again, if you want a deeper experience, you're going to do a third column for, you remember how in Mr. Brown, how he had 3 resentments? You're going to do a third column for each one of those three. So you're going to have a lot of writing to do. Okay? Now, again, it's up to you. If you want a deeper experience, I'm always going to give you extra so you can have a deeper experience. All right? Remember, you cannot overcome self with self. I cannot beat the ego. I am going to lose. I need some kind of other power. Remember, it said lack of power was our dilemma. I need a power. Remember, we went through We Agnostics, and I said, I'm in here looking for a power that's bigger than my ego. And then I found one. And it was called all powerful. I like that. I need something that's bigger than my ego to help me with the ego. It says right here, I'm going back to the reading. It says right here, we avoid retaliation and argument. That's telling me I am not going to react. Keep my mouth shut. I am not going to retaliate or argue. Shut up. Right? So I just wrote that in there. Shut up. We wouldn't treat sick people that way. How many times have we talked about the word sick? Right? Again, we're talking about sick people again. I'm spiritually sick. You're spiritually sick. It puts us on an even playing ground. Even Stephen, right? If we do, It says, if I retaliate an argument, we destroy our chances of being helpful. And we cannot be helpful to all people. But at least God will show us how to take a kindly and tolerant view of each and every one. Do you guys see what it says next? Do you guys see what it says next? It says, referring to our list again. Well, we got to look at it again, right? I thought we were done looking at it. So the first time we went back, right? First time we went back, I kind of blew that up with the ego, right? Now we need to look at it again. And it says right here, putting out of our minds the wrongs others had done. So what I have to put aside, and I just wrote, is the second column. I got to put the second column aside. We resolutely look for our own mistakes. Where had we been? Selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened. Though a situation had not been entirely our fault, even if it was not entirely your fault, it says right here, we disregarded the other person's involvement entirely. So now what that means is, first we're getting rid of the second column, right? Now it's telling me entire involvement. That means if there's any part of them in that third column, we're going to get rid of that too. We're not going to, it has nothing to do with them. This is all about us. It says, were we to blame? Where were we to blame? The inventory was ours, not the other man's. So I'm not going to sit here in an inventory, or even in step 5, ever talk about anybody else. The only time I'm going to talk about somebody else would be in that second column. That would be it. Other than that, it's going to be how it affected me and what, all that, So when we saw our faults, we listed them. We placed them before us in black and white. We admitted our wrongs honestly, and we're willing to set these matters straight. Okay, so we got to do something. Again, what are we doing? Sheet of paper. We need a fresh sheet of paper. We're going to do a fourth column now. This might go a little bit longer, but I think it's okay. I want to get the fourth column done, and then that should be it for the day. And then we'll come back next week. Okay, so fourth column. Top of the page. I want you to write very top. When I say top of the page, I mean up very top. I want you to write the word. I want you to write the realization. The realization. Realization. You're going to have some kind of realization as you're going through this process, even if it's with column 3 or column 4. And that's where you write your realization of what's happening, right? Some of us have spiritual experiences doing this. It's just completely life-changing, okay? So, realization on top. We're going to write, on the first line, we're going to write self-seeking. Self-seeking actions. We're going to count down 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go 5. Let's go 6 lines down. The next one is going to be selfish. Selfish attitude. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines down. It's going to be dishonest delusion. Delusions. Dishonest delusions. I'm going to count down another 5 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines. Fear. Fear that drives. Well, I'm just going to leave it blank. So, be like this so far. Everybody good? Okay. The bottom, underneath fear, I want you to skip 1 line, and I want you to write this. So it all makes sense. Skip 1 line out underneath fear, and put the above fears. It could be fear or it could be fears. If it's 2, 1. If it's 1, that's 1. If it's sometimes it could be 2 or 3. Okay, so the above fears drive the dishonest delusion drive the dishonest delusions that result in the attitude, the selfish attitude that are behind my self-seeking actions. I'll read it to you one more time. The above fears drive the dishonest delusion that result in the selfish attitude that are behind my self-seeking actions. Again, if you miss anything, this is recorded. So if you miss anything, I'll make sure you can get the recording too. Or you can ask me at the end of the meeting. Okay. At the very bottom, I have like 2 lines left. Has everybody got at least a 1 line left in there? 1 or 2 lines at the bottom of the page. I want you to write the word harm. 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 And I want you to look at that resentment. What we're looking at here is any other harm that you might not have listed anywhere in the first 4 columns, any other harm that you know of. Now, you're not going to put anything there yet. We're going to go through this first, and then you're going to look back at the harm. But I want you to look at the harm. Sometimes they're collateral damage. I talked about this yesterday, where maybe I'm fighting. If I'm yelling at the wife in front of the kids are collateral damage. If I run outside and the wife follows me outside and I'm yelling in the neighborhood, the neighbors are affected. The neighbors are collateral damage. You follow me on that? Look around that resentment. Look at what's going on. Is there any other harm that you might have done? That's where you would write that down. Okay. Again, some people call that collateral damage, So let's go through this. And it's going to be, again, I need to take out Mr. Brown. I'm just going to kind of do it with Mr. Brown because that's what I've been doing it with. I have to have this thing in front of me so I can make it all make sense. All right. So sometimes you want to go from bottom to the top. It just makes sense. The fear drives a dishonest delusion, which is in your mind, which fuels a selfish attitude, and then results in the selfish action. Now, sometimes when you're looking at this, you got 4 things. Sometimes I just know my action. I already know the actions. What, my selfish actions were, my self-seeking actions were, It's kind of like, where was I acting on behalf of myself, playing out that character? Think about that, right? So we're looking at Mr. Brown. So I do know a little bit of a story behind that Mr. Brown. I can't remember where I read it at, but there was something, I remember reading something about that. Anyway, we're looking at his actions, right? Self-seeking actions. What are the fear? So here's the thing. This fear is not going to be any of the fears that you got in the 3rd column. If you remember when I posted the link, this is like this last fear at the bottom here on this last column is going to be a combination of all those fears that you have in the 3rd column. This is going to be like the boss fear at the end. This is like the one at the end that is driving it all, And so sometimes I can't get that, but I can get 1 or 2, and then I can kind of figure it out and work my way, but you want to go from the bottom to the top. So I'm going to say that his fear, his bottom, the fear that Bill has with Mr. Brown, I think the biggest fear of them all is just not good enough. Does that sound right to you, Sean, too? Just not good enough. Because you know what? We've all had this. We've all felt that. I'm not the only. We've all felt that before. Not good enough. That's the ultimate fear. And then what is that? What does that fear? The above fears drive the dishonest delusion. What is the dishonest delusion? The dishonest delusion is that he could believe the lie that he's not good enough. Believe in that lie, right? This is deep stuff, right? Believing my lie But I might change this. I'm going to see how this goes, how this plays out. And then if it doesn't play out right, then we just kind of, and that's how you're going to just be molding it, as you go along. Believing my lie that I'm not good enough. Not good enough. Believing my lie. And then that fueled, and then the attitude, let's think of this attitude as like, believing my lie that I'm not good enough, and then resulted in a selfish attitude. Let's think of a selfish attitude. Look at column 2, right? It's attention to my wife, told my wife of my mistress, Mr. Brown might get my job. What kind of attitude he's got? Like a selfish attitude was. My selfish attitude was, I was thinking what come to mind here was like a holier than thou attitude, selfish attitude, like, what is my selfish attitude? What about his actions? What about his actions? What's the actions? Anybody want to help me out here? Yeah, I'll get it. I'll get you. Hang on a second. I saw you reach over. All right, go ahead.
I think his selfish actions would be to prove to others, like what Joe was talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Selfish actions would be to exert himself, wouldn't it? To overexert
Yes.
himself. That would be to seek allies, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. To prove. What am I proving? To prove.
He's a good husband. To prove he's good at his job.
Oh,
Prove
yeah,
he's
yeah.
worthy.
Prove I'm a good worker.
Yeah.
A great worker.
That's what I've got down.
It's more like it wouldn't even be like that. To prove that Mr. Brown is not coming back to work tomorrow. Mr. Brown, self-seeking Mr. Brown. Anyway, yeah, to prove. That's right. To prove I'm better. Is it to prove I'm better than you?
Well, it would be, wouldn't it? Because
to prove I'm better than Mr. Brown.
yeah, because it's him, isn't it, in column 1? Yeah. So
Right.
it would be, if you put in all those three as in column 2 as a 1, to his wife, he's obviously having, his insecurities in different areas of his life with him. So yeah, it would be to prove that he is better than him. And that's it.
Right. So what would the attitude be?
The attitude would be,
I was thinking the
I'll
holier
show
than thou.
you.
Right. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Thank you, Sean. I was throwing the blank there. I'll show you. That's a good one. That's perfect. That was great. I'll show you. Yeah, every once in a while I throw a blank. I just need a little help there. All right. You guys understand that 4th column? So I want you to do a 4th column for every 3rd column that you have. Now, for those that want a deeper experience, are you guys ready for this? I know Sean's like, let me get the pad. So a deeper experience. I gave you a deeper experience for the 3rd column. I'm going to give you a deeper experience for the 4th column. I want you to stay in this 4th column as long as it takes. First off, for you to realize that the 2nd column was a lie. And I want you to stay there long enough, because if the 2nd column is a lie, we've already covered that, because of you being in that false sense of self in the 3rd column, that 2nd column is a lie, the names in the 1st column won't be there. They'll change. And you're going to come up with, stay in that 4th column until you only get 2 names. It's either going to be you or God in column 1. That's what you just stay in column 4 until that's all you're going to come down to, is just you or God in column 1. Because I want you to think about that for a second. If you're in a delusional state of being in column 3, column 2 is a lie. But I'm going to tell you, the whole point of doing column 3 is to show you where you've been playing God. And I told you I was going to show you that last week. Remember I said I'm going to show you where you've been playing God? Can you see where you've been playing God? Everybody. Can everybody see where you've been playing God? In this inventory that we just did. In column 3. Especially in column 3 and 4. I get some nods. I just want to make sure you see where you've been playing God. Right? Again, we did the theory of lie. That was that third column. Based on that whole lie, I realized I've been living my life in a delusional state. No wonder why I've been in collusion with everything and everybody, even when my motives are good. Now, the third column should confirm page 62, which is selfish self-centeredness, the ego that we think is the root of our troubles, driven by 100 forms of fear. So I'm going to tell you that if you have lots of resentments in column 1, you're going to have, if you have lots of resentments in column 1, actually, I'm just going to ask Sean. Sean, can you unmute yourself, or do I have to have you do it again? I don't know if you can do it once.
Yeah, I can do it,
Okay,
mate.
Sean,
Yeah.
I got a question for you, Sean, because we did this about a year ago, I think it
Yeah.
was. And how many fears did you end up with? I mean, you didn't have very many, right? Would you have like 5 resentments or something?
Well, yeah, I won't find many, but it was about 100, about 110, 120 between that, about 118 fierce. There was a lot of fierce.
So you
Hell of a
see,
lot.
right? So you see, you're going to get a lot of fears in that third column, and you're going to get more fears again in the fourth column. Now, what I want to share with you is that your insides don't match the outside. Your internal condition does not match the outside. Internally, page 52, and it's also the third column of my inventory is also page 52. If you don't believe me, go back. It will match up perfectly. Okay. That's my internal condition, my spiritual conditioning. Okay. My internal condition is all affected by what everybody does, what everybody says and does. You know, man, there was a lot in there. I saw where I was playing God in that third column, like, and I just, you know, and yeah, it was just a. So anyway, the third column should confirm page 62. Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, self-pity, right? Okay. Now, we got the harms on the bottom. If you see your faults or where were you to blame, I want you to put them in the harms or anywhere else they might go. So like, harms and stuff. Sometimes my actions, my self-seeking actions is my harms too, because that tells me exactly what I did. What did I do? Right? I'm going to prove I'm better than Mr. Brown. Right? Remember, the only way to kill off the ego is prayer or meditation. Get into that spiritual way of life. That's going to include meditation. Oh no, meditation. How do I sit quietly and what do I do? Because I don't even know what to do, because guess what? There's no wrong way. There's no wrong way of meditating. And meditation sometimes can just be going for a walk. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you a couple of tools. Okay. When you start to feel offended by somebody's coming at you, right? And they're normal, you already know you might get pissed off. All right. Just leave this, just go for a walk. That's why I'm talking about it. Remove yourself from the situation before it escalates. Don't create more drama for yourself. Stop yourself. Stop the words from coming out. I used to always go, and I would stop and she'd say, what were you going to say? Nothing. It was just a hiccup, right? You see, learn to stop yourself. Be aware of what you're going to say before you say it. Or if you're not, stop yourself from saying it. Think, pause for a minute, think. Don't keep making more drama and problems for yourself. This is about, listen, you're at this stage right now where it's like a snake is about to shed its skin. You're about to kill off the old you, and the new you is about to emerge here. We're in this transition, right? Because I know for me, I don't want nothing to do with that person that's in my inventory. Again, like I said, I feel like I just threw up on the table. I don't want nothing to do with that person. I want to change. Think about when you first came to AA. I don't want to drink anymore. Help me, right? I don't want to be the person I am anymore. I need help. That's the way I approach this. That's how I feel when I come here. I need help because I cannot overcome self with self. I need some kind of power that is bigger than my ego to help me. I need to humble myself to that power And that's that power to help. So I can't give you much hope at this point other than write it down. And then when we get to step 5, I'm going to break all this down to help you be free from that. Now, I'm going to ask a question, and it's a group consensus here. I want to know how you guys want me to approach this. Do you guys want me to continue down the page and we'll go through fears and sex conduct, and then we'll just do a whole meeting on step 5 where I'll go over all of them? Or do you want me to go over step 5 with resentments next weekend or next Saturday? It'll probably take about, maybe an hour to break it up, break everything all down, kind of, So I just let you know, if anybody wants me to do that next week, that's fine. If not, then I could just go through the rest of the inventory. We'll just continue on with fears and sex conduct. And then at the end, when that's all done, we'll just do one big step 5. And I'm going to show you how to do that. And I have a couple ideas with how I wanted to approach that in a different, I like to bring stuff to the table that people don't. I go to a lot of big book workshops. There's big book workshops on Zoom every day, and I post them because I want you to go to other workshops. I am not Brian the Great that I think I am. I'm just another alcoholic just like you. Go to other workshops, learn, keep an open mind. You can never learn enough. I'm 28 years sober, and I'm still having spiritual experiences almost every day. And I scratch my head and go, why is this still happening to me? And then the other side of my head goes, it doesn't matter as long as it keeps happening. So don't even worry about it. Just let it just happen and embrace that. Again, realization on the top of column 4 is where I would write those type of experiences that you've had either with column 3 or column 4. Write your realization in there. Does anybody have any comments or questions before I do that? I'm just going to
Just a quick realization, Brian.
okay.
And this was something that I heard that was just very kind of stood out to me, is that everything that people had done to me in column 2, I at that point at the where it says we realized that people were wrong, where it talks about them being spiritually ill, and I like myself was spiritually ill, and then you spoke about like being on the same level, right? We're both all the same. So the realization really, and I heard it, and it was that there was nothing that they haven't done that I haven't done. So that again, that just validates what you say. It's the same, isn't it? I've done the same thing as what they've done to me. So for me, that was a good realization. I like to look back on that when I realized people are spiritually ill, because what drove me to do the things that I did when they did, and they've done the same thing, and I've done the same thing. I was spiritually ill when I did that, and I have to really consider that they may be spiritually ill as well, and I do believe so. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I like. I like it when somebody tells me I'm spiritually sick. It just sounds a little easier than someone saying, you're sick. As I look at it, like if I'm sick, that could include like immoral or something like that versus being spiritually sick. It just sounds a bit more easier for me. It just sounds, oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, I need to go meditate. You know what I mean? Or something. It just sounds easier for me than just saying, man, Sean, you're really sick. You're really bad. See what I'm saying? So I don't really go around and call people that they're sick, but I tell them that they're spiritually sick. Ask, how's your internal condition? Are you suffering? Because if you're suffering, man, you got to do some work. Because this ain't about struggling. Sobriety is not about struggling or suffering. It's not. Because when we get further on, it says we don't struggle and we take it easy and we pause. Dude, I like that kind of life, taking it easy, chilling, pausing. I like that because I don't live like that. I'm like, go, 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 go. Plow. I'm like a tornado roaring my life through the lives of others, man. Sweet relationships are dead. Selfish and inconsiderate habits have kept my home in turmoil because of me. Because of me. It was all me and my ego. And now I don't want to live like that anymore. When I look at this inventory, it's really easy for me to go, Tom, I've been living with myself. all this time. You know, if somebody treated me the way I treat myself, they would not be in my life. I would have completely just ghosted them, you know, but I can't ghost myself. You know, you can't ghost yourself. You got to look yourself in the mirror. You got to get right with yourself before you can get right with others. This is that moment where you're going to get right with yourself. When we get to step 5, then you're going to get right with others.
You know,
You gotta do- Good.
it's a they always who amongst you would throw the first stone? That's a biblical thing. When you're because you've done, and they couldn't because they were all guilty of the same thing. When you criticize and about forgiving yourself, the process, I think this allows me to forgive myself, and then to be able to forgive others. And because we all got problems, and the realization that we're all together in this, we're on the same ship.
So you brought up something that I forgot to mention, but I usually bring it up in step 5. But the only way to overcome resentment is with forgiveness.
Yeah.
But I won't talk about, but I don't talk about that until I get into step 5. There's no sense of talking about that because we still got 2 more inventories to get
Yeah,
to.
no, you do.
You know,
You got ways to
but
go.
I did write in my book though, on the top of page 67, I wrote the key to forgiveness is serenity. So when I'm feeling serene inside, I don't have anyone to, like, I've forgiven everybody. When
Yeah,
I'm peaceful and
it's
serene inside here, and my internal condition is at peace with myself, I don't have any almost, I don't have to, you know, I've already forgiven myself.
yeah,
You know, it's real easy for me to forgive you when you've harmed me.
but you don't realize
Listen, but it's hard for me to forgive myself.
Yeah, that's always the hardest.
Okay. It's easy for me. I don't care if you stole from me or whatever you did. Okay. I can work on that and learn to let that go and forgive you. But when I'm looking at remorse and shame, I can't, I have a hard time forgiving myself. I like to just take out the hammer, boom, 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 boom. You know?
You know the feeling of forgiving yourself? It's not a literal on the blackboard thing. It's just that you have some serenity. You'll notice you're at peace. That is a sign that you have forgiven yourself. That
Right. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Right. You're at peace.
and you don't really realize it until all of a sudden, I'm okay.
All right. Let me just wrap this up real quick before does anybody have any questions on column 3 or column 4 that I hope that you'll be able to take home and finish? Does anybody have any questions before we leave here? And also, if you might not have a question now. If you have a question later, and just message me. Just message me. You know, I'll answer the phone, whatever. WhatsApp, I'll talk to all of you. It doesn't matter. It's like a thing. You get confused. This whole thing is not about getting confused. And I know for me, sometimes if I work on it for too long, I just need to walk away and take a break. Go for a walk or something. Come back to it. Take a break. You know, because I know sometimes my brain can get all scrambled and I'm like, oh, just all frustrated and I don't get it anymore. Man, just go take a break. Go eat something, take a break, come back to it later. And then I notice when I go look at it later on after I've taken a break, that shit starts making all kinds of sense now. You know? So just remember that when you're doing that. Just take a break if you get like that. Okay. I want you to try to have it all done by next week. Okay. And then I'm gonna just jump right in. We're gonna do next week. I'm gonna tell you what we're gonna do next week. I'm gonna do what they call a reverse fear inventory off of our resentment inventory. It's called a reverse fear inventory. I'm going to do that, and then we're going to get into fear inventory, and then we're going to do trails of fear. Yeah, I like I said, I like to bring new stuff to the table so you all can have new experiences with all of that, you know. So again, I threw a couple things out there to have deeper experience. I hope everybody did have a deeper experience with what we did today, and I think next week we'll just do fears, and then when we're all done with fears and sex, we'll just do one big giant fifth step like that. Or I say giant, but it'll just be, I'll just break down the resentments and then the fears and then it'll sex. I'll just do it. All right. Sound good to everybody?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. So let's just end this with the serenity prayer. All right. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. I want to thank you all for being here.